Hey everyone, FSU Bones here from the Inglorious Bastards gaming community, and after the success of my beginner's guide to roaming video, I wanted to bring you another video that just kind of goes over some tips and tactics that I use when roaming that I find to be very successful. So to start off with this video, we're going to talk about weapon attachments, and as many of you pointed out, you can see that previously when I was roaming, I ran the laser sight. A lot of you do not approve of this, and that's okay. I have since taken them off and I no longer use them. But to be honest, I don't find it to be as dead a giveaway as some other people find it to be. Me personally, when I'm playing, I have a hard time picking out other players using the laser sight, and maybe that's because I'm the only one stupid enough to use it, but I never felt like it gave away my position. It's not like in other games where you can clearly see the laser beam across the screen from an angle. You really got to see that small, minute dot, and frankly, I have a hard time believing that a lot of people can spot that. So I kind of say that's personal preference, but know that the majority of people are not going to run a laser sight. But if you feel you need it and you like to hip fire a lot, go ahead and do it. I would still keep it on shotguns though. It really does help tighten out that spread. The next attachment to consider would be a suppressor, and personally I think this is a must if you want to roam. Basically, when you're roaming, you want to conceal your position as much as possible. On offense, it's a little different. I don't run with a suppressor on offense because sometimes I want to make noise, I want to cause a distraction, and I want the defenders to look at me so my teammates can kind of come in from the backside. When I'm roaming, however, I want to draw as little attention to as possible to me. So you'll see that I will roam with suppressors on all my guns, shotguns excluded because that's just not an option, but I even throw them on my pistols to help muffle the sound and make it more difficult for enemies to kind of detect where I'm at. Keep in mind that using a suppressor does reduce the amount of damage that your gun can do to the body, so it might take one or two extra shots to go ahead and down someone if you're shooting them in the body. This makes going for headshots a little bit more important. It's not impossible to go ahead and down somebody with body shots. It can definitely be done, but I want you to be aware that if you do use a suppressor, it's going to up your time to kill by a little bit. So one of the things that I notice when other people are roaming is that they don't act quickly enough on the intelligence. If you have someone that's on cameras and is letting you know exactly where the bad guys are, I feel as a roamer it's a little bit more important for you to kind of use that information to your advantage and react to that as quick as possible. Remember, the goal when you're roaming is to kind of hide in a spot where you don't think they're going to come in. You don't want to be surprised by 3 or 4 guys coming into the room where you're trying to hide. However, once you know exactly where those guys are, you got to start moving in their direction. It doesn't mean necessarily take them head on, but you got to start moving to that side of the building or at least starting to get closer to the objective. Now, this doesn't mean you want to necessarily use the floor the enemies are on to take them on. If you watch my videos and you're watching these clips, you often see that when I flank, I prefer to use a floor that they're not on. I usually go above or below them so I can move a lot more quickly and get into position, and hopefully they'll be passed by and I can go ahead and shoot them in the back. Flanking on the same floor of them is just a little too risky. You never know if one's going to spot you, so I advise you to flank or move into position using a floor that the enemy is not on. So if you see those red arrows, try to notice if they're above you or below you or on the floor that you're on. And if you're not sure, go ahead and ask the person who's spotted. Hopefully they can give you some intelligence on where the bad guy is and that you can go ahead and use that to go ahead and get around. This clip is a good example of this right now. You can see I started off on the top floor. I came down to the first floor and look, that guy's still looking for me back up there. So I go ahead and shoot them and I win the round. Sometimes it's just that easy. And that kind of leads me to my final point on this beginner's guide to roaming, is that knowing when to run is also important. On that last clip you saw, I was engaged with that guy. I got a few rounds into him, but I didn't know what the situation was. Did he have a buddy with him? Did he not have a buddy with him? So I got a few rounds into him. I didn't like my odds. So what did I do? I went ahead and ran and took another angle at him. He was not expecting that, and you'll find that if you're roaming and you use this strategy, a lot of other people won't expect that too. It's a good way to go ahead and get the jump on them once again. They'll be so busy watching that corner that you were just at or that alleyway you were just at, they're going to try to peek it maybe and look to see where you are. Meanwhile, you're no longer there. You're coming down around and trying to get the flank on them. Granted, if they're smart, they're going to go ahead and move and not necessarily be there. But a lot more times than not, you'll find that they're at the exact same spot that they are, just chilling, waiting for you to peek your head out, and you can get the jump on them. Also, when you roam, it's not necessarily all about kills. Like I've mentioned in other videos, you are going to be outnumbered. So sometimes if you jump in, get 1 out of the 3 and run away, you've done a good thing. First off, you've kind of killed one guy, and that's an obviously good position to be in. But also, you've slowed down their attack. Now they're worried about you, and they're not going to be so focused on the objective. And if they are focused on you, what you can go ahead and do is have one of your teammates jump up from behind them from the objective room and get the jump on them. That's it for this video, guys. Hope you find these tips useful. I'm FSU Bones, wishing you happy gaming.